She was one of the most recognized faces in the heavy equipment industry. Bridgette Chitwood built a loyal following through CNC equipment, where her authentic style and deep product knowledge made her stand out. Then, without warning, she was gone. No farewell video. No public statement. Just silence. Her fans noticed immediately. Questions spread across forums, comment sections, and social media pages. What really happened behind the scenes at CNC equipment? The answer is more complicated than most people expected. Keep watching. The heavy equipment industry is not known for friendly faces. It is a world of steel and diesel, of large machines with complicated names, of technical specifications that take years to learn. Most people who buy or rent equipment already know the industry. They know the language. They know the process. But many people do not. First-time buyers, small business owners, contractors just starting out, farmers looking to expand their operations. These people often feel lost when they walk into a dealership. The machines are enormous, the price tags are high, and the sales process can feel cold and transactional. That is the world Bridgette Chitwood stepped into. CNC Equipment is a dealership with deep roots in the heavy equipment market. The company sells and rents construction and agricultural machinery, everything from compact track loaders to large excavators. They serve contractors, landowners, municipalities, and businesses across their region. It is a serious operation in a serious industry. When Bridget joined the company, she brought something the industry rarely saw. She brought warmth. Her presentation style was different from the standard sales approach. She did not talk down to viewers. She did not overwhelm them with jargon. Instead, she explained machines the way a knowledgeable friend might explain them, clearly, directly, and with genuine enthusiasm for the subject. She understood the equipment deeply. That much was obvious to anyone who watched her content. But she also understood how to communicate that knowledge to people who were just learning. That combination is rare. In any industry, video content was becoming an increasingly important part of how equipment dealers reached buyers. Customers were no longer walking into showrooms cold. They were researching online first, watching walkthroughs, comparing models, reading reviews. CNC Equipment recognized this shift and invested in producing content that would meet customers where they were. Bridget became central to that strategy. Her videos covered equipment walkthroughs, feature explanations, operational tips, and dealership updates. She appeared comfortable in front of the camera in a way that felt natural rather than rehearsed. Viewers responded to that authenticity immediately. The comments on those early videos told the story clearly. People were not just watching. They were engaging. They were asking follow-up questions. They were sharing the videos with colleagues and family members who were also in the market for equipment. Some viewers said they had bookmarked specific videos to rewatch before making purchasing decisions. That kind of engagement is difficult to manufacture. It comes from trust. And trust in the equipment world is built slowly. Bridget built it faster than most. For many followers, she represented something important beyond the videos themselves. She was a woman succeeding visibly in an industry that had long been dominated by men. She was not performing a role. She was not a spokesperson reading from a script. She was a professional with real knowledge, doing real work, and sharing it with an audience that appreciated every moment of it. Her presence changed the way many people thought about CNC equipment. The dealership was no longer just a place to buy machines. It was a resource, a place where you could learn something, a place where someone would take the time to explain things properly. That shift in perception had real business value. Customer trust translates into customer decisions. When people feel comfortable with a brand, they are more likely to call, more likely to visit, more likely to buy. Bridget was a significant part of why people felt comfortable with CNC equipment. And for a while, everything seemed to be working exactly as it should. But behind the polished videos and growing audience, something was quietly shifting inside the company, and Bridget may have been the first to feel it. There is a moment in many success stories when everything seems to be working at once. The audience is growing, the content is connecting, the business is benefiting, and the person at the center of it all is operating at the peak of their ability. For Bridgette Chitwood at CNC Equipment, That moment was real. Her videos were reaching more people with each passing season. The dealership's online presence had grown meaningfully, and her role in that growth was hard to miss. Viewers who found one video often stayed to watch more. That kind of retention is one of the most valuable things a content strategy can produce. CNC Equipment is not a small regional dealership operating out of a single lot. The company has a notable presence across its market area, with inventory that spans a wide range of equipment categories. Serving that kind of customer base requires more than good products. It requires communication. It requires education. It requires the ability to reach buyers before they ever walk through the door. Video content became a cornerstone of how CNC Equipment handled that challenge. And Bridget was at the center of it. Her videos covered the kind of content that equipment buyers actually needed. She walked through machine specs in plain language. She explained the differences between similar models. She highlighted features that mattered in real working conditions, not just on paper. She gave viewers a reason to trust CNC Equipment's expertise before any sales conversation even began. That pre-sale trust is enormously valuable in industrial markets. Equipment purchases are not impulse decisions. They involve significant money, careful research, and often months of consideration. A buyer who has already watched several helpful videos from a dealership's representative arrives at that dealership in a completely different mindset than a buyer who found the company through a cold search. Bridget was building that bridge. The loyalty she developed with viewers went beyond passive viewership. Industry forums and online communities dedicated to equipment buyers began referencing her videos regularly. People mentioned her by name when recommending resources to others. Some customers at CNC Equipment reportedly asked specifically to work with her or cited her videos as the reason they chose the dealership over competitors. That kind of personal brand equity, where an individual's reputation actively drives business decisions, is rare in any sales environment. In heavy equipment, it was nearly unheard of. She had become more than an employee producing content. She had become a trusted figure in a specific community. Her face and her voice were associated with reliability, clarity, and genuine helpfulness. Those associations do not develop overnight. They are earned through consistent work over time. And Bridget had done that work consistently. But consistency in front of the camera does not always reflect consistency behind the scenes. Business environments change. Priorities shift. Leadership makes decisions that ripple outward in ways that employees and customers do not always see coming. The heavy equipment industry, like any industry built around capital, inventory, and regional market conditions, is not immune to those pressures. Industry observers who follow dealership operations closely know that content strategies are often among the first things to be reconsidered when internal changes occur. Video production costs money. Managing a public-facing personality requires coordination. And when a company goes through restructuring, transitions in ownership, or shifts in marketing philosophy, the people who were central to the previous strategy can find themselves in an uncertain position. None of that was visible to Bridget's audience during those peak years. What they saw was consistent, helpful content from someone they had come to trust. What they did not see was the business reality operating underneath. Looking back, some observers noted that subtle changes in production style and content frequency began appearing in CNC Equipment's output during this period. The shifts were small, easy to overlook at the time, but in hindsight, they pointed towards something larger. Then the videos started changing, and Bridget started appearing in them less and less. Loyal audiences notice things. They notice when a familiar voice disappears from a channel they follow regularly. They notice when a face they have come to trust stops appearing in new content. They notice the gap, even when no one else is talking about it. That is exactly what happened when Bridgette Chitwood stopped appearing in CNC Equipment's video content. The first responses were quiet. A comment here, a question there. Viewers asking where she had gone, assuming she might be on vacation or handling other responsibilities. These early comments were casual, concerned, but not alarmed. But weeks passed. Then more time went by. New videos continued to appear on CNC Equipment's channel. New content was being produced and published. The dealership was operating normally by every visible measure. But Bridget was not in those videos. And no one from the company said anything about why. That silence changed the tone of the audience's questions. Casual curiosity turned into genuine concern. Comment sections that had once been filled with equipment-related questions began filling with a different kind of conversation. Where's Bridget? What happened to her? Did she leave? Was she let go? Is she okay? Those questions migrated beyond the comment sections. Heavy equipment forums, online communities where contractors, operators, and buyers discuss machinery, dealerships, and industry news, picked up the conversation. Threads appeared asking specifically about Bridget's status at CNC Equipment. Some members of those communities had interacted with her directly at the dealership or at industry events. They were not strangers asking an abstract question. They were people who had a real professional connection to someone who had suddenly gone quiet. Social media amplified the conversation further. People who followed CNC Equipment on various platforms began tagging the company and asking for updates. Some of those messages received no response. Others received replies that observers described as vague, acknowledging the question without actually answering it. The absence of a clear explanation was, itself, a kind of answer. When companies lose employees in straightforward ways, retirements, planned transitions, amicable departures, they typically say so. A short statement, a farewell post, something that acknowledges the change and thanks the departing person for their contributions. That is standard practice. CNC Equipment offered none of that. No farewell post appeared on the company's social media. No statement was made on the channel where Bridget's videos had lived. No acknowledgement of her departure appeared in any public communication from the dealership. The company simply moved on. And in doing so, it left thousands of viewers without the explanation they were looking for. That silence did something the company may not have anticipated. It did not quiet the questions. It made them louder. In the absence of facts, speculation fills the space. Online communities are particularly good at generating theories when official information is unavailable. Some theories were sympathetic toward Bridget. Others attempted to explain what might have changed internally at the company. A few went further, raising questions about how the dealership had handled the situation. None of these theories could be confirmed, but the fact that they existed and continued to spread reflected something real about the relationship Bridget had built with her audience. People do not speculate for weeks about the disappearance of someone they were indifferent to. They speculate because they care, because they feel a connection, because her presence had meant something to them, and her absence felt like a loss that deserved an explanation. CNC Equipment never provided that explanation publicly. The company said nothing. But the people who worked closest to the situation knew the real story was just beginning to surface. To understand what likely happened to Bridgette Chitwood, it helps to understand how the heavy equipment industry and the dealership world more broadly actually operates. Most people interact with dealerships as customers. They see the showroom floor, the inventory lot, and the public-facing staff. What they do not see is the business structure operating underneath. The ownership arrangements, the regional agreements, the vendor relationships, the internal pressures that shape every decision a dealership makes. And they almost never see what happens when those pressures lead to change. Equipment dealerships, like car dealerships, agricultural suppliers, and construction material companies, operate in a market that moves with economic conditions. When construction slows, demand for heavy equipment drops. When agriculture faces pricing pressure, farm equipment sales follow. These are cyclical businesses that have to adapt constantly to survive. That pressure to adapt shows up inside companies in ways that customers rarely witness. Marketing strategies get reassessed. Content budgets get reviewed. Personnel decisions get made. And sometimes the people who are most visible during one phase of a company's growth are not part of the next phase. Not because they failed, but because the strategy changed around them. This pattern is not unique to heavy equipment. It appears across industries wherever companies have invested in public-facing personalities to drive brand engagement. The automotive industry has seen it repeatedly. Regional dealerships build entire marketing campaigns around charismatic salespeople, only to quietly remove those people from public content when the company changes direction. The same dynamic plays out in agricultural supply, industrial equipment, and commercial real estate. The company moves forward. The individual is left to navigate the transition largely on their own. What makes these situations particularly difficult is the nature of the loyalty involved. Bridget had not built a following for herself in isolation. She had built it as a representative of CNC Equipment. Her credibility was intertwined with the company's brand. Her audience found her through the dealership's channels. When that relationship ends, the individual does not simply walk away with their audience intact. The subscribers stay on the company's channel. The videos remain on the company's platform. The relationship between the audience and the individual becomes complicated, visible in one direction but inaccessible in the other. Rebuilding from that position takes time, and it requires deliberate effort. Some people in Bridget's position choose to step away from public-facing roles entirely. The experience of having a professional identity tied so closely to a single employer and then losing that platform can be disorienting. The work continues. The expertise does not disappear. But the audience connection that once felt natural now has to be rebuilt from scratch, if the individual chooses to rebuild at all. Others use the transition as a starting point. They launch their own channels. They join new companies in similar roles. They find ways to carry the trust they built with their audience into a new professional context. The outcome depends on many factors. The circumstances of the departure, the individual's resources and support, the size and loyalty of the existing audience, and whether the audience itself chooses to find and follow the person they trusted in their new location. There is a broader lesson here that goes beyond Bridget's specific situation. When companies place human faces at the center of their brand strategy, they are making an investment that carries risk on both sides. The individual invests their professional identity and reputation. The company gains the loyalty and trust that the individual generates. But that arrangement is rarely formalized in a way that protects both parties equally. When it ends, the company keeps the channel. It keeps the videos. It keeps the subscriber base. The individual keeps their skills, their experience, and whatever personal connections they managed to build along the way. Whether that is enough depends on what they choose to do with it. And then, slowly, pieces of what actually happened began to come to light from the most unexpected directions. The full story of why Bridgette Chitwood left CNC Equipment has never been told in a single, official statement. That is worth noting, because in the absence of official clarity, the public record becomes the most reliable guide available. And the public record, while incomplete, does tell a story. What is observable is this. Bridgette's presence on CNC Equipment's content platforms faded over a period of time rather than ending in a single, announced moment. There was no farewell, no transition post, no statement from the company explaining the change. For a person who had been as visible and as trusted as she was, that kind of quiet exit stands out. After her departure from CNC Equipment became apparent to her audience, attention turned to what she would do next. This is the part of the story that matters most to the people who followed her. Audiences who develop genuine loyalty to a public-facing personality do not simply forget that person when they disappear from a familiar channel. They look for them. They search. They check other platforms. They ask questions in online communities, hoping someone has an update. That search behavior is itself a form of measurement. It tells you how real the connection was. And in Bridgette's case, the search was real. According to activity observed across social media platforms, Bridgette maintained a professional presence outside of CNC Equipment's channels. She did not disappear entirely from the public space. What changed was the context, the specific platform and employer through which her audience had known her. Her expertise did not vanish with her departure. Years of working with heavy equipment, communicating complex information clearly, and building trust with an audience in a demanding industry are not skills that expire when an employment arrangement ends. They are portable. They belong to the individual, not the company. This is an important distinction. The videos she made for CNC Equipment remain on those platforms as the company's property. But the knowledge behind those videos, the communication ability that made them effective, and the trust that viewers placed in her personally, those things followed her. What her story reveals about the relationship between personal brand and corporate employment is something the equipment industry and many other industries is still working through. Companies benefit enormously from employees who can generate audience trust. That trust is a form of business capital. It drives engagement, customer decisions, and brand loyalty in ways that traditional advertising cannot easily replicate. But the arrangements that govern those relationships are often informal. Expectations are rarely written down clearly. What happens when the arrangement ends is often left undefined. That ambiguity creates the exact kind of situation Bridget's audience experienced. A trusted face disappears. No explanation is offered. The audience is left to fill in the blanks with whatever information they can find. The heavy equipment industry is not unique in facing this challenge. It is playing out across dealership networks, regional franchises, and mid-sized companies in dozens of sectors. As video content continues to be a primary driver of customer trust, the question of what companies owe to the people who built that trust becomes more pressing. For Bridget, the story does not end with her departure from CNC equipment. It ends, or rather continues, with the recognition that the work she did mattered, that the audience she built was real, that the trust she earned through years of clear, honest communication about complicated machines is the kind of asset that does not disappear when a job ends. The question her audience asked, where did she go, and why, was never fully answered by the company she left. But the fact that so many people asked it for so long, and with such genuine concern, says something important. It says that what she built was real. Her name may have left CNC Equipment's channel, but the story of why she left, and what it says about the industry she helped humanize, is one that is far from over. Bridgette Chitwood's story is not just about one person and one company. It is about what happens when trust is built in public and then quietly taken away without explanation. It is about the invisible risks that come with being the human face of a brand. And it is about what loyal audiences do when the person they trusted simply disappears. Some questions in this story remain unanswered. That is the honest reality of situations that play out away from public view. But the pattern is recognizable, and the lesson is clear. People remember who helped them. They remember who explained things clearly, showed up consistently, and treated them like they were worth the effort. That kind of reputation outlasts any single job. If this story made you think about loyalty, about trust, or about the real people working behind the brands we follow, consider subscribing to the channel for more real-life stories from industries most people never look closely at.